I am so excited today to introduce to you my guest expert for the day for Rebel Radio. This is Andrea Arledge. She is a dear friend of mine, as well as a colleague, and she's been in different classes and courses with me. We've been on a journey together for a couple of years now, and I'm so honored to have you here today, Andrea. Thank you.
I'm honored. I'm honored to be here with you always. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm just so blessed to be able to share this experience with everybody and bring in experts of self-mastery into this conversation. I was really pulled to start bringing in guests into this podcast the other day, and so I just trust that the universe has a reason for it. And I think in times like these, we need to spread the word in a big, big way. So
I agree.
Thank you for being part of that.
Thank you for listening.
So tell us a little bit about Andrea. What does Andrea do? What is Andrea passionate about?
Oh gosh, where do I start? Okay. No, I like am a Reiki master teacher, and I teach a lot of Reiki and do a lot of Reiki, and really I help women, what I call like helping women really awaken their inner healer. And that's, working with empaths, working with women who identify as with that wounded healer archetype, because I do identify with that woundedness and being the healer. Like that's my greatest gift, comes from that wound. So, helping women just awaken.
I love that. And I love your hashtag doing healthcare differently. Like that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge actually, because, and I know you know this, and what I need to remember is that not everybody knows this, but is that I consciously chose to leave a 16-year nursing career to do healthcare differently. And so it perhaps so well into this self-mastery conversation, because doing healthcare differently is inviting in just not part of the Western medicine model, but it's like a marrying of the Eastern and Western ways of doing things. So
I love that. I love that. And who have been some of your biggest influencers along the way that have helped you in your self-mastery journey?
So that have helped me in the way that I'm looking at this journey is one of my nursing supervisors gave me a book, The Alchemist. And that really set me on, because I'm looking at this more of my spiritual journey. It's definitely tied into that. And it started with that book that she gave me. And it was like she gave me permission to go explore, and that's important for me as in my own archetype. And then that led me to other teachers, like my teacher that taught me my holistic nutrition. He, Dr. Hanley is his name, from the Energetic Health Institute. And then, of course, Joy Kingsborough, that actually taught me emotional mastery. But all of it is like wrapped up. It all each teacher led me to the next teacher.
I love that. And it becomes like one after the other, right? We just keep soaking it up. Yeah.
So good.
I love that. Yeah. And I love that your definition of self-mastery and mine are different, which is part of the reason why I feel pulled to bring other people into this conversation, because my opinion is good for some things, but what you have to say about self-mastery is so different. And that's what I love, because for you, it was your spiritual journey. And for me, it is spiritual as well, but I'm looking to build the bridge between science and spirituality. And so it's a totally different pathway, but at the same journey to that self-mastery. So I love that.
I know. I was just having this friend, this because I love stone medicine and I love talking about stones, but it makes me think about like a kyanite stone, literally. That's like this bridger stone, and that bridging the science with the spirituality, that's real. I mean, it's, and that's so important. And the bridging of or the unity rather of the body, the mind, and the spirit, when you marry the Western and East. Oh, I'm getting chills as I say that.
I know, me too.
And I'm like, yes, that's
so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you dream of for the world, Andrea?
I wish that the world would just really wake up and do like realize that full body health is that marriage, the unity of the mind, the body, and the soul, the soul work. It all goes together so that we can live in a more holistic, or holism, live more holistically.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. And that's one of the things that I teach in my work, is that when your heart has this desire to go do something in the world, your brain does one of two things. It either tells you all the reasons why you can't do it, or all the reasons why you can.
Right.
And that's what I see self-mastery as. When your heart desires something and your brain goes, okay, I'm on board, let's go do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the magic of self-mastery.
I could just feel that in my body when you're saying. I was like, like the leap, because there was. I mean, let's be real. I wasn't always self-mastered here, and by any means, and I mean, do we ever all get self-mastered? Like, that's a question. Yeah. But what I was going to say is, before all of this, like, trying to decide, like making that decision, that leap of faith, going, okay, well, I know that the world needs this. And having the courage to leave, was a real struggle. And, I don't struggle with it now so much, but what is going on in the world right now, I'm really sending a lot of prayers to those frontline workers, the medical field. But yeah, just having the courage to make that decision was huge. And that in and of itself was a piece of having the self-mastery, because I trusted myself to take the leap.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's a big jump to leave an industry that you've been in for so long, and to go out on your own, and we're going to do this spiritual thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a big jump.
Right. And there was a lot of unpacking there to do about, like, who am I to do this? Like, who am I even to who am I to do this? Who am I to, like, turn my eye away, turn my my vision away from just, like, Western medicine.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've kind of alluded to a little bit of this, but tell us a little bit more about your journey of self-mastery. So you left nursing, and then, tell us a little bit about that piece once you left, and how you landed where you are today.
Okay. So before I left nursing, I had become a Reiki practitioner, and that changed everything before I even left. And that made it even harder, knowing what I knew, to stay there in that narrow-minded, I'm just going to call it like it is, way of thinking. And so I left, and I went right into this holistic nutrition 2-year program, and I learned so much. And it was all about living holistically, about the mind. You have to engage it all. And I learned so much there. And then I feel like when it really landed is when we did the year-long certification for the Universal Laws certification and the emotional mastery. That's when a lot of it sealed itself even more so, I think, in my body, because I used to struggle a lot with anxiety, and I couldn't sleep. I had this horrible insomnia that started actually in nursing school. And it was a lot of my perfectionism. Like, I had to have straight A's. I had to do everything just right, because I started nursing school when I was like 23, I think I was 23. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But I did struggle with that. And so that was part of some of this unpacking too, that I had to do with emotional mastery. And sometimes I'll catch myself, but I have the tools.
Yes.
I have the tools to catch myself, and knowing too, because there's even been times recently that I've noticed that I didn't ask for help when I needed to. And it being a pattern, that I thought, wow, you thought you handled that one. And, so these things still sneak up. That's why I'll never say that I am totally self-mastered. I will get self-mastered in something, and then there's always the next thing.
There's
Right?
always more. Yeah, I always say that to my clients. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you dive into this work, the triggers don't go away. It's how you respond to the triggers that changes. Definitely. Because I mean, my little monkey mind used to go off for days sometimes where I would beat the living crap out of myself for a week for something that I didn't even do, but I would take the blame for it. And that was a big piece. And even now I notice where if something goes wrong with technology and a client is coming to me and saying, hey, this isn't working, I notice the trigger. And it still comes up and I'm like, oh, hello, I see you. But the way I respond to it now is completely different. I don't beat myself up anymore. I go outside and meditate. That's a big difference.
That is a total game changer. Yeah. And that is part of my, to fully answer your question is that meditate. Okay. So I did, when I left nursing, I jumped right in. I was like, I'm doing healthcare differently. So I did my holistic nutrition certification and I did yoga teacher training. So I did a 200 hour training. It was a 9-month training. And, wow, that opened up even more. Like I got like I'm in my body. Wow, I'm like in my body and I'm breathing. And the breath, like what that just inviting in the breath taught me so much about myself.
Oh, it's so powerful.
Because it's that pause. Like how can we know anything? I remember giving a talk to nurses because I'm surrounded by nurses like in my family. And so I had my stepmom asked me to come and talk to a group of nurses that she was working with. And I talked to them about the power of the pause. And they were all just like, their jaws were just like, we see like this, that's because we were doing breath work and we did a little bit of a guided meditation and things like that. And it was so good to hear that they actually took that back to their patients, Cindy. In home health. I know. I was like,
yes. Impact, baby. Yeah. I always liken to that, the pause as it's when we're caught up in the anxiety and the stress and the monkey mind and all of the things, the chaos that's going on in the world today. It's like this water wheel is just spinning around and around and around and around. Well, you can't just turn the water wheel the other way. It's going to break. You have to
break the wheel, break the spoke in the wheel. Yes,
exactly. So you have to stop the water wheel first. And that's the pause. Just take 5 minutes to close your eyes and breathe.
I'm so glad that you said just take 5 minutes, because in yoga teacher training, every day for 9 months, every day I had to, for 5 minutes or for 30 minutes, do yoga, for 5 minutes, meditate and journal about it every day. And that was, I had to turn in my journal, at the end of the 9 months, and just being committed to doing it. And that the commitment part and knowing that I wanted to, again, I was going to do my journaling. I was going to do all the things.
Straight A's.
But it wasn't in perfectionism at that time. You know what I'm saying? It was because it felt it was different. It was a different energy behind it. It's more I'm committed to showing up for myself finally, because I was so burnt out. My adrenals were a hot mess. I mean, I was really, really burnt out from nursing. And I knew that I had to do that. I had to be committed to that practice. And that changed everything. That changed everything too. So there's so many nuances and layers to this, this one question of you going, what was your journey to self-mastery? It's like, well, it started way back when.
Yep.
But it's all a stepping stone, just like my teachers. Like they're all this stepping stone to finally land into this place where I know that I have the tools now.
Yeah.
And feel comfortable saying that and trusting myself.
Yeah. And that's why we call it a journey, right? Because it starts somewhere way back when we're younger, and each little step is a little step, and a little step. We never actually reach the destination.
Right.
There is no
Right.
destiny.
There is. Right. There
Yeah.
isn't. There isn't. And we're so trained or programmed rather to think that there is. So we're
Yeah.
always trying to get there. And that's part of that busyness that we wear like as a badge of honor. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so busy. I'm so,
Oh.
like, I'm busier than you. That makes me cooler than you. I don't
Right.
know. Right?
Yeah, it really doesn't. Yeah.
No.
And I think that's one of the things that's so powerful about what's going on in the world today is we're all being forced to slow the fuck down.
Yeah, we're all being forced to slow the
Yeah.
fuck down.
I
That's
was
the perfect way to say it.
I was having this conversation yesterday and somebody was saying, I just wish I had the time to do these things for myself. I'm like, great, you have the time now.
Mm-hmm.
You have 14 days. So take that time. Don't Netflix binge. Don't go distract yourself with games on your phone.
Right.
Do the things you've been
Ah,
wanting to do because you're so damn busy to do it any other time.
my heart just leapt because I almost feel like, and I want to get into all like, why is this happening to the world right now? But it does just show it like there is no more excuses.
No.
There are no more excuses. Like,
No.
And a lot of time, when you're coaching people and they're like, I don't have the time. But you have to make the time. You have to decide. There comes a tipping point
Mm-hmm.
that it's like you come, or this was my experience, that I got to this point that it was so in my body, like showing up, manifesting as a physical illness, or, like my adrenal fatigue. I was so fatigued. It was like, I couldn't not do it. And so I had to carve out the time to do it.
Yeah. And I imagine that right now you're in this place where you want people to do it before they get to that point.
Well, it's preventative. So yes, because that's the Eastern mindset is like, let's prevent things.
Mm-hmm. Let's not do triage.
Let's don't do sick care. Let's do like a well care, like health care. That's real health care and health caring,
Yeah.
So it's definitely about preventative medicine. Definitely.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the difference between self-mastery and self-dominance, because this has kind of come up in our conversation a little bit where, you were forcing yourself to get those straight A's and be the perfect nurse. But when it came to your yoga instruction and learning the other pieces in Reiki, you did it because of a level of commitment rather than forcing yourself to do it. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So you said the difference in self-dominance, right?
Yeah, self-mastery versus self-dominance.
That just feels self-dominance. It feels like you're it's like you're forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do. And it's like beating yourself up or something, like that's what makes me think about that. Like, and why would you?
Yeah, but I see it happening a lot in that people are trying to control the situation, right? And I know that I've tried to do this in the past too, where, I want to lose 20 pounds. And so I force myself to go to the gym and eat foods that are like, I don't like kale. So why the hell would I eat kale? But here I am not eating any carbs and shoving my face full of kale. To me, that's self-dominance versus self-mastery. Because if self-mastery comes into place, then I go to the gym when I'm inspired.
Yes.
And I'm more masterful of my emotional eating. So therefore I don't eat all the carbs.
Yep.
And it's that awareness of what are the choices that I'm making rather than you need to go and do this right now. I don't care if you have the flu.
Yeah, it reminds me, like, it makes me think of like my inner mean girl or like my inner critic that would be like, oh, and bringing on, if I ever, and I've trained myself now, if I ever hear me saying you should be doing this, I'm like, wait.
Just stop shooting on yourself.
And I'm like, wait, Andrea. Wait, Andrea, what are you doing? What are you trying to tell yourself right now? And so I really have to check myself. And I still do. I mean, we all have that inner voice. Yeah. And so I catch her, and I've just tried to make friends with her and not make her or allow her to dominate me.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a lot of self-conversation to be had there.
So self-mastery is talking to yourself.
Hey. Sometimes, it's really. I've been when I was raised. I was raised. Obviously, I'm in the States, and I'm in a southern state. It's like sometimes that's the best damn conversation you're gonna get. Is that conversation with yourself.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I think it really comes down to the awareness of your thoughts, right? Because that inner mean girl, we've all got her.
Mm-hmm.
And she hangs out there and she just wants some attention. And why aren't you paying attention to me? And the moment you become aware of her yelling at you, and you give her a little bit of attention and have a little conversation with her and perhaps give her a little virtual hug, then she stops yelling at you.
Yeah.
But if you don't have awareness of what's going on, then you can't have that conversation.
Exactly. And that's the key about the pause, so that you can pause to have the awareness. Right. I mean, when we're more busy and we're doing, we don't have as many awarenesses, not in my experience. So really in meditation, stopping and in the breath, that's been the biggest. That's the allowance. That's the allowance of the connection with spirit, source, creator, whatever you want to say, to come and to give us those awarenesses.
Oh, so good.
I know when I said that, I just my mouth starts watering. That's how it's a really good sign of when you've engaged your parasympathetic nervous system in meditation is when your mouth starts watering. And my mouth just started watering. So I was like, oh, I've trained myself.
Interesting. I've never heard that before. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Mouth watering. I'm just going to think about cake while I'm meditating. Just kidding.
You're like, the carbs. This feels really good. I am totally in meditation.
I'm just kidding. So this question is probably impossible to answer. And every time I ask it, I kind of get this, wait, what? But what's the key to self-mastery?
Yeah, wait, what? No. I think it's the practice. I think it's the actual practice of the pause. I mean, I can't get around that. Like there's no other answer for me. In my own experience is that it is, and the dedication and the commitment, you got to be devoted to it. And if you're not, I don't know how that would work out for you, for anybody, not you.
Yeah. And I think that commitment piece is the big thing. Yeah.
Like the devotion and the commitment, and even like I've had to, like, on my calendar, like I've created, like, okay, so this is when you're going to sit down, you're going to do your meditation, your ritual, your daily ritual, and your channeling of this book that's trying to come through me now. And so it's the dedication to the practice.
Yeah.
And that's when you're going to notice in your body, whatever feeling may be coming up, whatever, even like, oh, I've got this pain in my hip that I haven't been paying attention to. Well, where's that coming from? What does it mean? Is it emotional or is it like physical, really physical? And so that's the only way for me is to practice that pause.
Yeah, and I love that. It is a practice. It's self-mastery is not a one and done. Woohoo! We have a magic wand and you're self-masterful. That's not how it works. And it is, like we've said, there is no destination. It's just this practice every single day.
And once it, and eventually I feel like you can even like strip away the word practice, because practice almost feels like something like, oh, I gotta go practice. And it's like, I mean, it depends on your perspective and your perception of that. But if it feels like something else to do, like on your to-do list, then you're not going to do it. So there comes this time where you're like, that practice feels so good that I know that if I don't do it, this is going to happen. X, Y, Z is going to, whatever is going to happen. And for me, if I don't do it, I get sick.
Yeah, that was actually one of my next questions, is what happens if you don't practice self-mastery? So you
get
sick.
I get sick. Physically ill.
And I think that's common for a lot of people. Yeah, for sure.
I get so fatigued. I go right back into that. My immune system gets all janky. Like it's crazy, you know. So I know my body is trained now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think, yeah, that's interesting that you bring up the word practice because it's almost like this to do thing, right? So what if it were a ritual
that's
or
right.
a devotion?
Right? Because a ritual, the difference between a ritual and a habit is like the commitment behind it.
Hmm.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
And so it is. That's why I said, like in the mornings, I'll do my ritual. That's exactly it.
Yeah. I
I'm so
love
glad you said that. I'm glad you
that.
picked that up. Yeah,
So good.
yeah.
So who are you most motivated to serve on the planet and how do you serve them?
So I'm most motivated to help the empathetic, the women. And you know what's even coming up for me? I mean, just this week and like the past few weeks, which I've had conversations around this, is like nurses.
Mm-hmm.
Nurses, but I work with women and help them again awaken their own inner healer, and that's what I'm most passionate about too. Is for them too to understand that it's not only this one thing, like our body, like oh, I just need to go to the gym and I'm good. Like
Yeah.
but it's your mindset and your soul, like the soul work. How can we introduce more of this soul work, you know? And so that's what really lights me up too, is the mentorship that I'm going to do. It's around a whole mystery school, because life is a mystery. We are a mystery, and if we
Yeah.
can open up to that and allow and start to really trust ourselves, and whatever comes through for us is what's alive for us, you know.
Mm.
And so,
Ugh.
and that's how, you know, really serving more in groups. I do work one on one with women too, but I really do love groups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course you do. It's in your chart.
of course it is. That's right.
Andrea, I want to thank you for being a part of this conversation. I really appreciate you being here today. Is there any last words that you want to leave with the audience before we end the call?
I would just say right now in human history, like we've never seen this. What's happening? I mean, I wouldn't say in human history, but like for us now, well, I guess you could say that because of this technology world that we live in, we're more connected right now, and as far as like we could reach out to people in different countries and things like that, you know, and so now and right now is the time to start unifying the mind, the body, and the soul. And I feel like almost that's been overused or cliche, but it's not. But it's not. And so if anything isn't showing, like being revealed to us right now, I think that it's that, and that we really need to take care of our whole selves, the
Mm,
whole self.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing today, Andrea.
Thank you for having me, Cindy. I love you.
I love you too.